Hey guys, today is finally the day. We are recording our first episode for our brand new true crime podcast.
It's about time, right?
Pretty sure everyone else is saying that also. Here we are. We're very, very excited. Just real quick, want to remind you guys, if you have not listened to the introductory episode, you can listen to it after this. You don't have to go run and listen to it. Just basically tells you about Marcus and me, gives you some of our social media pages, and tells you a bit about the podcast, what to expect, and things like that. I do want to warn you guys, I am going to use the F word in one part of the case. But to quote Mark Hamill, I apologize for the F-bomb. I only use it for historical accuracy. Now that we got all the specifics out of the way, let's dive right into the case that we will be discussing today. We will be discussing the brutal murders of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. Blake was 54, Mary Jo was 47 at the time of their deaths. Their 17-year-old son Tyler is said to have murdered them, and then he hid their bodies in the master bedroom. Also, Tyler could throw a huge party.
Yeah, this one happened in Port St. Lucie, right about where we were living at the time. I mean, I know I was pretty close to where this happened, and I had heard about it. I don't know any specifics of it, but I mean, everybody was talking about it. He went to the school that one of my friends went to, and it was just, this kind of stuff's tough to hear when it happens close by.
I lived in Vero Beach, which was about 40 minutes north of Port St. Lucie. This did take place in Florida, and it took place on Saturday, July 16th, 2011. So we did pick this case because, like Marcus said, we were familiar with it. We'd heard of the case, but after I researched it and I kind of discussed some things with Marcus, we realized that some of the facts we had were wrong, or there were things we just didn't know at all. So we thought it'd be interesting to cover a case that was very close to home for us, but things that, information we didn't know. So a little bit about Port St. Lucie. The New York Mets, if you're a baseball fan, you would know their spring training is there. They say that it has almost 205,000 in 2020, and it was described as a sleepy town. Marcus and I can contest it's blowing up.
There's nothing sleepy about that town, I'll tell you right now.
No, people are moving from South Florida up there. They're just migrating up. It's definitely a big, big town now. My sister lived there for a while. Definitely went to a bar there called Rebar, if anyone knows.
My parents currently live there.
And your brother lives just the next town over also.
He's in Palm City.
Yeah, very, very close. So this does hit home for us. Now, when I was doing my research, they had something that they called it Port St. Lucie. Have you ever heard that?
Never heard of that. I've heard of Port St. Lousy. I know there's, questionable characters there, and there's a lot of drug and, white-collar crime going on there, but nobody I know has called it Port St. Lucie. That could be a new thing, though.
Yeah, me neither. So, I want to talk a little bit about the research I did. I did read a book. It's by Ryan Hadley. Ryan Hadley is the older brother of Tyler Hadley and the eldest son of Mr. and Mrs. Hadley. He wrote a book with Dan Yerrick. I apologize if I butchered that last name, but I swear I Googled it like 15 times to learn how to say it. The book is called 1,000 Fireflies. It's a short, well-written book. I read it in 5 hours. Less than 150 pages, so if you're not a big reader, it's a decent book to read, if you don't like reading long novels. It talks briefly about the actual murder, but it focuses more on Ryan's journey through it all, from June 2011 to the publishing of the book in 2015. I recommend the book if you're struggling through a tragic or traumatic loss. Obviously, the murder of your parents by your brother, that's a massive loss, but I could relate to the book in a traumatic and tragic loss way, and if you are going through that, I would read the book. Ryan, he's an incredible human being, and I hope that he's doing well in life because the things he had gone through are absolutely insane, and he just came out of this such a good person, and we both hope the best for him. So there's not much about Mary Jo and Blake Hadley before 1987. I believe Ryan was born December of 1987. And they moved north to Port St. Lucie from Fort Lauderdale around that time. Now, Fort Lauderdale is about an hour and a half south of Port St. Lucie, and Blake was actually working in Port St. Lucie at a company called Florida Power and Light. We will refer to it as FPL because that's what we call it here. It's a power utility company.
Yeah, I believe he worked at the power plant that FPL runs.
Correct. So at the time, he is commuting from Fort Lauderdale to Port St. Lucie. So some say that they moved obviously to Port St. Lucie to be closer to FPL, to Mr. Hadley's job. Also, Mr. Hadley's parents lived in Stewart, which in essence is the next town over. So, so they moved here for the job. They moved here to be closer to family. Like I said, she was pregnant with Ryan at the time, so maybe they wanted to be closer to their in-laws so they weren't alone. Now, we will find out later on that they have or had other family in the area at the time. I don't know if they were there before or after, but there's family in the area, so that could be a good reason why they chose to move here. From all my research, for all intents and purposes, it seems like they had a relatively normal and quiet life. Not much going on outside of us knowing when they moved to Port St. Lucie up until the time, toddler years, things like that. There's not much information. We do know that Mary Jo was an elementary school teacher up until her death, and Blake worked at the power plant, as we discussed. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine, and Mr. Hadley and his stepdad worked together, and my friend's stepdad described Blake as a gentle giant and that he was a nice guy. Anywhere I read things about the parents, everyone just said how nice and incredibly sweet these people were. Whether it was about their parenting or about them as people, everyone absolutely seemed to love them. In Ryan's book, Ryan does discuss family trips they went on. He and his dad shared a love of FSU together. His dad, taught Ryan about FSU football, which is Florida State University for you non-football folks. Ryan also talks about that there's family in the area, so they did birthday parties and stuff. Tyler seemed to have a normal childhood growing up. Typical things. Like I said, birthday parties with family members. He was also a Boy Scout. People described him as having a great sense of humor. He was a really funny kid, but he was constantly hugging his mom. He seemed to be very clingy and affectionate, but more on the clingy side. And he would ask his mom things like, "Do you love me?" He needed that reassurance, which I guess can be disturbing in some aspects. Now that we know the outcome, it seems more disturbing, but...
Yeah, we're always looking at these small idiosyncrasies and stuff like that kids have towards maybe parents, or, like you said, clingy aspect of their lives, or what they hold on to, what tends to be their crutch or something like that. And then obviously we get a end result and we feel like, these things could play a part.
Yeah, absolutely.
In what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Ryan and Tyler were 6 years apart, but from Ryan's book, they seem to have normal siblings. You know what I mean? I know my brother Justin and I, we fought like cats and dogs growing up. We're very, very close now, but as kids, we terrorized each other.
From my upbringing, because I have a little brother as well, and it's kind of one of two ways. You either have an older sibling and the little brother tends to follow him and his friends around and kind of just tends to imitate what they're doing. Or in my case, all the friends that I had always had little brothers. So my brother always had friends of his own. He never followed me around and did what my friends did. So he kind of had his own upbringing. It didn't involve what me and my friends were doing. So there wasn't that influence.
Yeah, Ryan and Tyler were closer in their late teens, early 20s. So again, typical normal, you're very close with your brother. I'm close. I have 5 siblings. We're all very close. So, takes till adulthood-ish to get there. From the age of 10 to 17 is, as you know, and you and I actually spoke about this yesterday, the changes in your life that happen between 10 and 17. Hormones, puberty, things like that. For Tyler, at 10 years old, he started showing symptoms of depression. Now, his parents swooped in quickly, tried to get him help. They didn't ignore the signs, They didn't try playing him off or ignoring them. They tried to get him help. But also at the age of 10, supposedly Tyler told a friend that he wanted to kill his parents. That is going to be a reoccurring theme.
Oh, boy.
I don't ever remember at 10... I understand you wanting your parents to go away because they bother you and things like that.
Yeah, they said things you didn't like, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to run away," or, whatever.
But to say, I'm going to be the one to kill my parents?
Yeah, it's a little on the nose.
I've never. But it is also said that he was suffering from an eating disorder. Ryan said possible bulimia. Sounds like straight bulimia to me. So I'm going to say he suffered from bulimia. He was obsessed with the thought of getting quote unquote fat.
And that's just weird for a kid that age to be worried about. Like, kids don't usually worry about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it started, if it was like 10 or 12. It happens, absolutely, but it's not common to the point of bulimia.
But for little boys, especially with supportive parents, I
Yeah.
mean, it makes you wonder where he might have picked up that mentality.
Yeah, bulimia in young boys, unfortunately, it's not talked about enough, and it's not common, but it's definitely not discussed. So at this point, Tyler had nowhere to go, obviously, with the bulimia. I'm not sure if his parents knew at that time. Ryan said it kind of wasn't a secret, but again, maybe there just wasn't enough information to understand what he was doing was bad for him and that it was an issue. So he would purge his food. He also liked to put himself down a lot. He would say things like, "Oh, I'm not good enough." To me, it sounded very attention seeking. You know what I mean? When he would ask his mom, "Oh, do you love me?" Or he would say, "I'm not good enough." It sounded like he wanted affirmation.
Yeah, this all just sounds like low self-esteem. And again, having parents who everybody says are very supportive, very, very good parents, it makes you wonder where this mentality might have come from.
It's funny that you said that because Ryan actually pointed out when his brother was 10 and he was quote unquote showing signs of depression, Ryan said he felt it was just low self-esteem. He didn't think it was depression. He just felt his brother struggled with self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
Now, he was also, and I'm sure no one finds this surprising, he seemed to be a pathological liar. He would say things like, "Oh, my dad's not really my dad's abusive, my dad sexually assaulted me." None of these things ever came out to be true. Not one of them. None of this stuff could be proven. So, again, he's going through normal, typical teenage things. So now we're talking about 15, 16, 17 in age. He's skipping school, drinking, drugs, sneaking out. He even got caught sneaking out. He's getting arrested. He was arrested for aggravated assault, and it was not his first time getting into trouble. He was stealing, apparently something about siphoning gas. He was starting fires. The preserve that was by our house, I actually think he tried to set them on fire.
Really?
Yep. So, again, he's going down a bad path. And what do you think his parents are going to do about it?
Get him help?
Yeah. They tried to get him help, punish. I mean, his parents are going through a plethora of things to try to help him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it seemed like the more they punished him, the more he rebelled. His best friend, Mike, and I'm going to use Mike's name because he has given interviews, so I don't feel uncomfortable giving his name. But Mike had said that it seemed like Tyler had gotten away with stuff for so long that it had become a lifestyle for him. So when his parents would punish him by taking his phone away, taking the car away, things like that, it just made Tyler so mad. It would make him rebel, obviously. And at this point, he is telling his friends very openly that he is going to kill his parents. Now, I'm going to get into about couple weeks before the murders. Tyler was admitted to a substance abuse program by his parents. Now, this was outpatient, so he could go home and things like that. But again, they're trying to get him help. Ryan did state that not much more than a week before Tyler had killed their parents, that his parents were exploring more intense treatment options for Tyler. So it sounded like they were trying to send him to a full inpatient program for his drug use, because apparently he's coming home drunk. Ryan had mentioned stuff that Tyler would borrow his truck and he would leave like weed in his truck. But it was obviously more than weed. Like, he was doing hard drugs.
Did they ever like Baker Act him or anything? I mean, I'm sure that had to be.
I'm not necessarily sure they Baker acted him. I think Tyler voluntarily would go, but then he would fight it in the end. But in general, they were probably getting to the point where they were going to Baker Act him. Absolutely. Which would actually be a Marchman Act. But Tyler just did not want to be held accountable for anything. Everything was always someone else's fault or he didn't do it. Never, ever, ever, ever could hold accountability. So his parents would do things like they put a GPS on his phone to make sure he's going to school, make sure he's at the places he's supposed to be. They're checking his school attendance. They're grounding him. Again, taking the phone. Normal, completely normal stuff every parent's going to do. Now, 2 weeks before the murder, Tyler's hanging out with a friend, and in the middle of a conversation, Tyler states that he wants to kill his parents and have a big party after because nobody has ever done that before. Tyler said that he wanted to throw a huge party with the bodies still in the house. This is 2 weeks before the murder.
Literally, said those words?
He said these words to his friend, and I'm going to have mixed feelings about the things he has said to his friends and they didn't report. I need to remind myself, and maybe other people, some of these are kids, somewhere between the ages of 16 and 19. You have to understand, nobody believed Tyler when he would say these things. Tyler was just, I don't know. They just didn't believe him. They never ever believed Tyler when he said that he wanted to hurt his parents, okay? Now, on July 2nd, right, I'm assuming before July 2nd, Tyler's mom had taken his phone away. So I'm going to read you an excerpt of a conversation that Tyler had with a girl. I'm not going to mention her name, but you can find her name on the internet. Tyler says, LOL, yup, she's a CUNT, talking about his mother. She is a CUNT for show. I might kill her. The girl says, oh my God, no, jail, or I mean prison, LOL. Tyler says, oh well, heart emoji.
Okay.
The morning of the murder, this is another excerpt I just want to give. This was at 9:40 in the morning, and Tyler's having a conversation with a guy, and this guy, or kid, I don't know his age at the time, says, did you do it? Now, he's referring to, I'm assuming, murdering his parents, okay? So he says, did you do it? Tyler says, no, but I'm gonna. The kid says, bet. And then the kid says, you really should now. Do it. And Tyler says, then I'm having a party. And the kid says, yeah, party time, N-word. Mind you, I'm pretty confident both of these are little white kids, but I digress. Over and over and over again, he has discussions with his friends about murdering his parents.
So wait, does that friend get charged with like third-degree murder for like antagonizing or?
Nope. Nope. Trust me, I Googled and looked. So we're going to discuss the week, like basically the week of the murders. They're murdered on Saturday, and we're going to discuss from the Sunday before. So Sunday, July 10th, there's a family reunion. It's like a family reunion type thing. I don't know exactly what it was. But it was at Tyler's uncle's cabin in Georgia. Now, a few weeks before that, Ryan Hadley, the older brother, had moved to North Carolina. He had a girlfriend that was living there at the time. They are now happily married. But, his girlfriend lived there. I don't know when or how they started dating, if she was from Port St. Lucie or what. But at the time, she lived in North Carolina, Charlotte area, I believe. He moved up there to be with her. So they're having this family reunion in Georgia. Ryan goes to the family reunion because he's not far from where the cabin is in Georgia. Everybody said Tyler was normal. There was didn't seem like any animosity between he and his dad. I think his mom stayed home. There was no fights between Tyler and his dad. Ryan said he seemed completely normal. Everyone said he seemed completely normal. He was his funny self. No issues. But while Tyler was in Georgia, he's texting his friends about this massive party he's going to throw. Basically next weekend. Of course, none of his friends believe him because they know how strict Mr. and Mrs. Hadley are. And they know that Tyler's been having issues. So no one believes him about the party. They're up there basically from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. On Wednesday, they head back home, back to Port St. Lucie. Now, sometime between Wednesday and Friday, Tyler hid a knife, hedge trimming shears, possibly a 22-inch framing hammer. All these things he hid in his bedroom. But I don't know when they found these items. I know Ryan cleaned out the house after everything, but I don't know if they found this out because Tyler told them, or like the police found it, or Ryan found it afterwards. So I'm assuming that's why they don't know when it was hidden in there exactly, but
I'm not sure how that would be found out.
I mean, I'm assuming Tyler would just say, oh, I did this then, but Ryan doesn't state how he knows that. So I just found that interesting. I wondered how they came across that. Friday, July 15th. So nothing, I guess, happens on Thursday. Friday, July 15th, Tyler met with his psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said it seemed to be a normal visit. Obviously, he did not say, hey, I want to, kill my parents. Nothing like that. Just seems like a very normal visit. Now, the night of the 15th, Tyler and his parents, they went to Longhorn Steakhouse, which is a favorite of ours, favorite chain.
Very much so.
It was Tyler and Ryan's cousin's birthday. So they went out to, a birthday dinner. Ryan was still in North Carolina, obviously. He just moved there, so he's not coming to the birthday party. It is said again everything seemed completely normal. Tyler wasn't arguing with his parents. He was pleasant and polite. He did have a headache. I think he told his grandmother he had a headache. That was basically the only thing out of the norm. Now, it is interesting, though, that later that night, Friday, July 15th, Tyler actually planned on murdering his parents that night. He stood over them with the hedge trimming shears, but he backed out. The reason why we know this is because the next day, on Saturday, July 16th, he told his best friend that he had planned this. That, hey, I was going to murder my parents last night, but I decided not to.
Yeah, this is constant need for attention. Just, he needs somebody to be interested in what's going on with him, and it doesn't matter how crazy it is.
I have mixed feelings about this conversation between Mike and Tyler. I understand that Mike, again, probably didn't believe Tyler. I think he truly did not believe Tyler did that. But I would hope that if this ever happened again, that kids would know, you need to go tell somebody. You know what I mean? Like, he could absolutely be telling the truth. I truly believe he did. I absolutely think Tyler planned on killing him that night and didn't. Now, we're going to talk about the day of the murders. On the morning of July 16th, 2011, Mr. and Mrs. Hadley spent their Saturday doing normal Saturday stuff. I think there was something about them going to the farmer's market, maybe something about a dress shop. I don't really remember, but it was just basically normal things. They ran errands, nothing extraordinary. But during that time, they were texting with their son, Ryan. The last text was sent at 12:38 p.m., and it was sent by Mrs. Hadley. While they were texting, Tyler was deciding if he should murder his parents and then throw a party that night. On Facebook, and all of this information is on Facebook, screenshots and everything, Tyler posts on Facebook at 1:15 p.m., party at my crib tonight, ... maybe. Someone said, let me know. Someone else asked, what's good with that? And Tyler responded, I don't know, man. I'm working on it.
So wait, so earlier that day, he posts on Facebook, on social media, for all to see that he's planning on a party. Now, did his parents, nobody saw this, told the parents, maybe a parent of another kid or something like that?
No,
all of my friends have their parents as their friends on their Facebook.
I can say at this age, at 17, I probably wouldn't have had my parents on Facebook. Nor do I think Mary Jo and Blake were on Facebook. Now, I want to say Ryan was on Facebook, but maybe these weren't active in social media.
Yeah,
it's 2011. We're talking like 12 years ago now. Maybe it just wasn't as big of a thing. But no one said anything. No one tried contacting his parents. It does say in the book that on Saturday afternoon, Tyler did decide that it was the day to murder his parents. He ends up hiding their cell phones. I know that he took his mother's cell phone and threw it in Ryan's room. I don't know what he did with Blake's cell phone. And he did steal their debit card. Now, this is all new information to you because you thought that he murdered them in their sleep, which I also did.
Yeah, I thought they were asleep in bed and he just,
That's what I also thought, and apparently that's not true. So, after taking 3 ecstasy pills and listening to a little boozy song, because, you've got to listen to a little boozy song before you commit a crime, he changed into a coat and pulled some boots on. Now, his father was napping in the master bedroom, but his mom was on the computer. Now, I don't know where he retrieved the hammer from. It said he could have gotten it from the garage or his bedroom, but he did have a hammer with the, a claw end. And he is said to have stood behind his mother and contemplated killing her for a few minutes. That blows my mind. That you just stand behind your mom with a hammer and contemplate murdering her.
I'm just, I'm trying to picture this, and I don't know how, you said he put boots on, she didn't hear anything? Did she have headphones on or something?
That I don't know. I don't know if she just wasn't paying attention. Tyler lived in the house, so him walking behind her and moving around the house. The computer was in a very local, this is, again, 2011. It was normal for us to still have desktops in our living room.
Yeah.
So I think Tyler was just kind of walking around the house. I don't think she thought anything was amiss, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So after the contemplation, he hits her in the back of the head with the hammer. Now, I'm assuming that she was in pain, obviously, and that she was dazed and confused, but she turns to Tyler. And believe it or not, this is extremely, extremely common when you're being attacked, but the first thing you ask is why. And she says, "Why, Tyler? Why?" This is supposedly some of the last words that Mrs. Hadley ever spoke. He ends up beating her with both ends of the hammer, the blunt side and the claw end, and he hits her in the skull, in the back, and in the torso.
God.
The screams woke up Mr. Hadley, and he comes running from the bedroom. Now, at this time, Mr. Hadley and Tyler lock eyes. Mr. Hadley was described as a massive man. Again,
that's what I heard.
Yeah, gentle giant from my friend's stepdad. I want to say he was like anywhere between 6'5" and 6'7". I think he was 6'7", and like 300 pounds.
Big dude.
Correct. But when you're standing against your son, who you can see, I think he was just dazed and confused also. He's trying to understand what's going on. But between fight or flight, he leaves. He runs to the bedroom to try to get away from Tyler. But Tyler catches up with him. And Tyler's also, he's got to be at least I'd say maybe 6'2". He's a tall, I don't want to say big kid, but he was a man. At 17, he was a grown man.
Yeah.
So again, Mr. Hadley runs to the bedroom to take shelter, and Tyler hits him with the hammer. He asks Tyler, "Why are you doing this?" And Tyler says, quote, "Why the fuck not?" His dad falls on the bed, and Tyler beats and kills him as his father slides from the bed onto the floor. He ends up dragging his mother's body into the bedroom, and he lays them next to each other in the room. So it's on the floor. He lays them both on the floor. He then wraps their heads with a towel. Now, I know that means nothing to you, but in the criminal justice world, to us, people that listen to cases, that can be a sign of guilt. It can be their eyes were open and it freaked them out.
Yeah, it's to get rid of the personal aspect of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But let's say Tyler tried to say, "Oh, well, I didn't do this. Someone else did it." The wrapping of the towel around the head is a very personal thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, if you just murder someone you don't know, normally you're not trying to comfort them. You're not trying to... Comfort might not be the best word, but he wants to hide their faces. He knows what he did was wrong, and he wants to hide that.
I mean, did he do it to maybe reduce the mess from them bleeding or anything?
Nope, and I'll explain the why in a second. So he wraps the towel around their heads, and he puts the hammer between them. Okay? After the murder, he's trying to now conceal the bodies in the room. He goes to his living room or all parts of the house, and he starts piling furniture, chairs, end tables. You can see in some pictures of the crime scenes, Mary Jo's students' homework is thrown in there. Ryan said something that Tyler emptied a filing cabinet, family photos. He's going around his house taking photos and stuff off the wall and throwing it into this room. Okay,
into the bedroom to conceal their bodies. He is trying to bury. Oh, he's covering the bodies.
Correct.
With all this.
He's taking all of these things and covering their bodies.
God.
He's taking stuff from let's say there's bloody papers. He's taking that stuff and throwing it. Basically, he's trying to bury his secret in this back bedroom. Okay, or in this master bedroom.
Oh man.
One of the most eerie crime scene photos is a picture of everything strewn around in this, and there is a picture of a magazine. And on the cover of this magazine is sweet baby Kaylee Anthony. And that is just so eerie. It's the most famous one where she's got her hand on her face. And
just right on top of the pile?
Just almost right on top, or very predominant in the photo. And for anyone that doesn't know, Kaylee Anthony was a very young toddler. And her mother, Casey Anthony, was tried for murdering her.
We'll cover that later.
It definitely a case we'll cover because, like I said, I did go to the trial. Very interesting case. So, but that was a very large case at the time, and it's just very eerie that was in there. And now these are both very sensationalized cases. Now, Dr. Linda O'Neill was the ME who performed Mary Jo's autopsy, and she stated, and I quote, Looking at the totality of the injuries on her body, there were 36 areas of impact. She was alive during every single blow. There is evidence of hemorrhage in the tissue in every single injury, and she was mobile for some of the attack. Now, Ryan does state in his book that there was evidence of her trying to crawl away from the area that Tyler attacked her in. I don't know if Tyler went back and attacked her afterwards, or if she just ended up...
Maybe after the father, he went back and she was still moving.
Exactly. Tyler doesn't say anything about it, so we don't know exactly if she just ended up passing away from her injuries, unfortunately. Some of the injuries did include a gaping wound in her head, fractured ribs, a lacerated lung, and again, 36 areas of impact with the claw side, the claw, I don't know why I keep saying crawl, the claw side or the blunt side. Now, Dr. Roger Middleman, he's the ME who performed the autopsy for Mr. Hadley. He says there was a minimum of 39 blows or strikes. What we had were multiple injuries about the head, the neck, and the shoulders, and the upper lower extremities, the back, and also the chest and abdomen. So again, he brutalized his parents with this hammer. Now, you had mentioned he wrapped the heads so that he could, kind of contain the blood and things like that. Yeah. There was blood everywhere. Everywhere.
It had to be.
Everywhere. So much blood. He tries to take the next few hours to clean up the blood. Okay? Not super successful. Again, he's a 17-year-old teenager.
I mean, after using a hammer to kill your parents, I gotta imagine that it was a huge mess. There's no way he was able to clean it all up.
Absolutely. I mean, not the way to go, I think, if you want to take someone's life. Not that we ever condone that, but again, he's 17 years old. He's not thinking of the aftermath. He's not thinking of, what's going to happen next.
He's ready to party.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, he proves that very well. So, he spends the next few hours trying to clean the house, doesn't clean it all up, gets up what he thinks is a reasonable amount. He then takes a shower, and according to the book and according to Tyler, he looks into the mirror and laughs. Okie dokie.
Yeah, normal.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That's what I do, standing in front of the mirror all the time. At 8:15 p.m., he posts on Facebook, "Party at my house tonight. Hit me up." Someone comments, "Whoa, what if your parents come home?" To which Tyler replies, "They won't. Trust me." What? I had goosebumps the first time I read that. You dirty snake. So, at this time, he heads to an ATM with the stolen debit card, and he goes and he picks up some friends. Now, the next events, everything I'm going to explain, the times are going to be sporadic. Some of the stories are sporadic because now you're getting stories from 15-year-old to 20-year-olds, okay, who have been drinking and doing drugs all night. So, some of the stories are, they could be correct, they might not be correct, but this is all from what I think are reliable sources. Again, take the next part of this to a grain of salt.
Right, there's probably some semblance of truth in some of these, but like you said, there's substances involved.
Correct. So people start showing up for this party around 9 or 10 o'clock. This ends up being a massive, 60 to 100 kids.
Holy.
And this house is in a regular neighborhood. Florida neighborhoods, typical Florida neighborhood.
No, Port St. Lucie is, like I said, residential. It's house next to house next to house. There's no property in between anybody.
Correct. This is residential house, residential neighborhood, 60 to 100 kids show up. Tyler doesn't know, probably 90% of these kids.
Of course.
Tyler has 5 friends. And it gets all over Facebook that this kid has a party, his parents aren't home or whatever. Now, people are noticing that his parents' vehicles are still in the driveway. And people kind of start asking questions, right? Well, and they want to know how they're being allowed to throw this party because his friends know, or even 17, I would have asked him oh my God, your parents let you do this? That's so crazy. Tyler says things like, "Oh, my parents are out of town," or "They're in Georgia," or that they just no longer live there. I don't know who would have believed that, but I don't know. That's what he said anyway.
Drugs.
So, yeah. So now the party's in full swing. They're doing typical party stuff. Beer pong to me is typical party stuff. The next stuff, I guess, isn't necessarily. But they're playing beer pong. Now, they are doing drugs. They are drinking. But they are decimating this house. They're going through the cabinets. They're smoking cigarettes in the house. They're putting it out on the couch, the furniture. They're also ripping stuff off the walls. They're destroying this house. Now, I have been to many high school parties in my life. I never once went to a party where we destroyed someone else's house. Whose kids are these at this party?
No kidding. This is like everybody's living out their angst fantasies of, whenever their parents have yelled at them, like, now's the time to get it out. I don't know.
I just remember reading this thinking, I never, ever went to parties. It absolutely insane. Blew my mind. Now, they're throwing beer bottles everywhere, trash, like I said, cigarette butts. The smoking part's interesting because people start smoking in the house, whether it was weed or cigarettes, I'm not sure. But Tyler makes a comment. Please don't smoke inside. This is my parents' house.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of stuck with me. Well, now people are trying to go outside to smoke, and they're causing you have 60 to 100 kids trying to go outside and smoke. Tyler ends up saying, no, it's fine. Just stay in the house. Just, you guys can stay inside. Because obviously he doesn't want the cops called on him.
Well, right. That's what I'm wondering here. Like, all these people, all the noise, all the just... The craziness, and where are the neighbors at? What are the neighbors doing?
Well, they chime in later, thank God. So, I mean, not really. They really don't have anything to do with anything, but they do chime in later. Now, people are trying to walk around different parts of the house. Of course, I'm not going to lie, that would have been me. I wouldn't have touched anything, but I like looking. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're trying to walk around different parts of the house, and Tyler is adamant. Do not leave this area. Like, stay in the living room or the back porch, whatever the case may be. Do not go down the hall. And the kids did it. Now, throughout the party, people are saying weird stuff. One super, super drunk kid had said, quote, "I smell dead people." Now, how freaky is that? But, as you know, blood has a metallic smell.
Yes.
So
very distinct.
I don't know if he was smelling because I'm assuming at this part, I mean, I'm not an ME and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not super familiar with how fast bodies decompose and things like that.
Right.
But this is I guess 6 hours later. I'm assuming that things are starting to happen, whether they're starting to bloat or not.
Now, was this? I mean, obviously, I don't know if anybody's going to know this, but kids say things tongue in cheek. Like, if he was one of the kids who was in on the whole plan to kill the parents, and he's just on drugs or something, and he, sarcastically, just because he knows, he just yells out, "Oh, I smell dead people," just trying to give out a hint.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because it says later on that people joked about him killing his parents. Like, oh, his parents aren't here because he killed them. I think it was tongue in cheek on their part. I think this kid actually smelled dead people. I think because when they're explaining him, he didn't sound like a friend of Tyler's. He sounded like an outsider, like one of the random kids that came. So I think he genuinely smelled it, and whether again it was the metallic or whatever, but we'll move on from that. Like I said, someone joked that he did kill his parents, but the thing is you could see blood. Now, where Mary Jo's computer was, there was blood on the keyboard and on the desktop. Kids described it as it looked like spilled Coke or soda. Again, this party is... the house is destroyed. Yeah. So I guess the kids weren't really looking that close at it. But this time, the blood, it's not bright red. It's a darker color.
Once it oxidizes, it becomes a darker color. So it just doesn't... It's not that bright red anymore.
Correct. So the kids didn't pay any attention to it. Now, throughout the night, Tyler is making comments. He's making comments that he's going away for a really long time.
Yeah.
He wants to kill himself. Something really big is going to come out next week. Now, again, he's drunk and high on drugs. The kids are drunk and high. Because, again, I don't know exactly this timeline of when all these things are happening. They're happening between 10 and 2 a.m. Mostly is what I'm going to assume is the time frame. And again, he's saying all these things. Now, people are just assuming, like, his parents are coming home Sunday night and they're going to find out about this party. That's why he's saying these things, because now he's starting to feel guilt.
Yeah.
You know, when you're drunk and what do they say? A drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. So it's basically like that concept, right? But they just assume that his parents are going to be pissed about the party. Now, around 12:30, they leave to get more beer. I don't know if there was, like, someone of 21 but it says that Tyler left to get more beer. I just thought it was interesting. Who's selling these kids beer? Because I definitely nowhere in Vero or St. Lucie County could buy beer.
Somebody always knows somebody.
Where were they for us?
Whoa.
No, I'm just kidding. So now 2 a.m. is when things start getting really, really interesting in the story. Two things come up around 2 a.m. Now I want to point out, I don't know in which sequence this happened. And the reason why I bring that up is because the sequence will make it interesting when I'm done discussing what it is. At this point, he is really eager to talk to his best friend Mike in private. Even though he'd been hanging out with Mike all night, he wanted to talk to Mike in private. So they decide to go for a walk up the road. Tyler admits to Mike that he murdered his parents. Okay, he tells him that I murdered them. I'm not sure if he goes into straight detail about what he did, but Mike absolutely doesn't believe him. And Mike it gives an interview about this. He doesn't believe him. He's like, okay, Tyler, yeah, right, whatever. And Tyler's like, bro, read the room. My parents' vehicles are still here. Would I ever really do this and they would come back? Again, Mike doesn't believe him, so Tyler brings him into the house. He doesn't show him the bodies at this point, but he does show him, like, little blood around the house. I think there was, like, a bloody footprint in the garage. He's showing Mike this stuff.
I can't spell it out for you anymore than I
think, again, he's in such... Tyler had been his best friend for so long. He was like Cheryl and me. 2 peas in a pod. You know what I mean? This is his best friend. And he loves Mr. and Mrs. Hadley. These are like second parents to him. So I think he's in such denial that he says, I thought that Tyler was pulling the ultimate prank on me. Like, he truly believed it was just a prank. So again, Tyler's pointing out all these things, this and that. And Mike's like, fine, I want real proof. You know, you call your best friend's bluff. Absolutely. Right. Tyler says that he'll give him proof after the party. Now, at some point, it must have been discussed that he concealed his parents in the bedroom, because Mike ends up going outside, somehow is accessing the room from the outside. Now, I don't know if there was like a lanai or a patio with a door, but somewhere there's a door, another door to the bedroom that you can access outside. Yeah, something like that. It couldn't have been a sliding glass door, because Mike says that he's trying to open the door and he can't get it open. So it's a door that swings in. And he's like, I'm trying to get the door open. I can't get it open. And when he has to throw his entire body against the door to get it open. And he peers in. And the reason why he couldn't get the door open is because Mr. Hadley's leg was blocking the door. So he now sees Mr. Hadley's leg. And he knows that it's not a joke. Like, the Hadleys are dead. Mike doesn't leave the party. Mike doesn't call anybody. Mike doesn't necessarily tell anybody. Again, mixed feelings. I don't know what I would have done in that situation. I will never be in that situation. I don't know what I would do. Was it shock? He says it's because Tyler was his best friend and he knew it was going to be the last time he was ever going to see him. He knew Tyler was in big trouble. Mixed feelings again. But again, this kid's anywhere between 16 and 19 years old, because Tyler's 17. So he could have been a little younger, maybe a little older. I would say maybe 18. So 16 to 18, you're just, again, I digress. There is a famous picture of the two of them, of Mike and Tyler, after Tyler had admitted to murdering his parents. I was watching a 2020 special, and someone, the interviewer asked Mike, why did you take this picture? How did you feel in this moment? And Mike said, I knew I was calling the police after this picture. Like, I knew it. I knew he was going away. I knew I was never going to see my best friend again on the outside. So I don't want to say I can understand that, but I sympathize with Mike. That's a hard position to be in, to know that you're going to call the cops on your best friend in this entire world. So soon after that, the reason why I said I wasn't sure which took place is because after this, the party basically breaks up. Now, people are leaving, they're revving their engines, blah, blah, blah. Neighbor ends up calling the cops, right? The cops come to the house. The cops can see that the party's basically dispersing. And the police officer talks to Tyler. Everything seems fine. Oh, everyone's leaving, blah, blah, blah. And the police leave. Now, I don't know if at that point Mike knew about the murders and he could have gone and told the police. From what I understand, I truly believe that the police came first. The party dispersed a bit. And then he walked with Mike. I think that's what happened. I think that the breakup of the party happened first. The cops came. Mike didn't find out until afterwards, after the cops came. You see what I'm saying? Like, did Mike have the opportunity to go outside and say, hey, I need to talk to you guys? Or did he not have that opportunity?
Yeah.
Between 3 and 4 a.m., Mike decides to show a friend some of the blood. He doesn't show the bodies, but he does show some of the blood. And the friend's like, toodaloo, I'm out. Right? The friend is gone. He leaves. He asks Mike to come with him. And Mike stays for a little bit, not long. Mike does leave shortly after that. So that's between 3 and 4. Around 4:20 in the morning, Tyler calls Mike because he notices that Mike left. So Mike dipped at some point and didn't say bye to Tyler. He just leaves. Tyler does tell Mike that there's another party tomorrow night and asks if Mike's going to come. And Mike's like, totes, I'll be there. Can't wait. As soon as Mike hangs up the phone, he calls Crime Stoppers. And he reports Tyler. He reports that his best friend murdered his parents. This is a fact. This is not a hoax. I saw Mr. Hadley's leg. At 4:24 a.m. I'm sorry, that's when he made the call at 4:24. At 4:32 is when either Port St. Lucie Police or St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office was dispatched. They don't necessarily point out who. Yeah. But one of them was dispatched. So, I mean, shortly after. Tyler calls him. Mike's like, totes, can't wait for the party. Hangs up. They dispatch someone. Now, the friend that dipped earlier that was like toodaloo, he did also call 911. I think he called after, because it only makes sense. Because if Mike called at 4:24 and then they were dispatched at 4:32, I think the friend called later in the day, but he did call. So kudos to him. Kudos to both of them. Now, at 4:40 in the morning, Tyler, who seems to be a little Facebook king, types, party at my house again, hit me up. So
at 4:40 in the morning?
A.M. So this is right after the police were dispatched. Obviously, the police aren't there yet. But he's at 4:40 a.m. He's ready to party again.
Oh, like right then?
No. Later that day. But he's ready to start partying again the next night.
Oh, so he's planning a party for the next night.
Correct.
Okay.
As far as I understand.
Okay.
So now the police, as I said, are dispatched. And they show up at the house. I think they look in the windows at first. And they see Tyler like pacing around. They have to see this house is trashed. You know what I mean? At this point, I'll show you the crime scene photos later. This house is trashed. They knock on the door and Tyler does what any logical person, or I should say teenager does, and he turns off the lights.
Yeah, I was going to say, he definitely didn't answer the door.
He goes, oh, if I pretend I'm sleeping, they're just going to go away. So they end up calling back up because now the lights are off. If they have to go in there with the lights out, obviously they want to make sure they have backup. So, but Tyler does end up answering the door. The cops ask where the parents are, and he says, oh, they're in West Palm Beach. I don't know why he chose West Palm Beach, but he said West Palm Beach. They end up handcuffing him because they obviously have probable cause, and they end up finding Mr. and Mrs. Hadley in the bedroom. He is arrested, and he is brought to Rock Road. Now, for those who don't know, Rock Road is the name of the St. Lucie County Jail. It is at 900 North Rock Road. And it's affectionately, or not affectionately, I guess if you don't like jail, I don't know who does, but we just call it Rock Road. That's what the kids or people who grew up there, that's what we call it. So if I refer to it again, I'll just refer to it as Rock Road. He was arraigned on August 5th, 2011. His public defender is Diamond Liddy, who I am a huge fan of Diamond Liddy. I actually would go to St. Lucie County and watch some of her trials. I don't think she's a public defender anymore, but she was a fantastic public defender. She did enter a plea of not guilty on his behalf, that's completely normal. So you have your first appearance, which you would have in jail. And then your first appearance is usually like the next day, right? And that's when you get your charges read to you. You get your Miranda rights read to you, things like that. You hear, like I said, you hear your charges. And if you get bond, you would get bond at that time.
Right.
Then you go to your arraignment. This is where you're going to enter guilty, not guilty, or no contest, or an Alford plea. And I'll explain to you in a little bit what that is. They do not guilty because at this point they want time to investigate what happened, and they want to maybe get a trial jury, things like that. Now on September 8th, a motion is filed to block Tyler from getting basically anything from the Hadley's estate. Life insurance is probably the big one. Ryan's attorney, the older brother, he has his attorney file this so that Tyler can't access any of the money for whatever reason, because he's not entitled to it. You murdered your parents. You don't get this money.
Yeah.
So for anyone that needs a reminder, if you murder someone and you're their beneficiary on their life insurance, you don't get the money. So just don't murder people. September 14th of 2011, the grand jury indicts Tyler. So what that means is when you're arrested, you obviously have to have probable cause to be arrested. That probable cause gets put in front of a grand jury. That grand jury decides if there is enough evidence or there is not enough evidence. They felt there was. Now we're going into the future about 2.5 years. January 17th, 2014, Diamond Liddy deposes Ryan in North Carolina. So again, the murders were July of 2011. We're now in January of 2014. Diamond Liddy goes to North Carolina where Ryan lives and deposes him. Basically, it's just like an interview. On February 19th, 2014, Tyler enters a plea of no contest. So you can either do guilty, not guilty, Alford plea, or no contest. He chooses no contest before Robert Makinsum. I hope I said that name right. Robert Makinsum. And Robert Makinsum, he agrees to this plea. I don't know if you know this, but you can go in front of a judge and give a plea and he can reject it. Like you can be like, "Oh, I'm guilty," and they're like, "Nope. We're gonna take this to trial for whatever reason." But that can be a thing. They have to actually accept the plea. This was less than a month before the trial. I truly believe in my heart that Diamond Liddy went to Tyler after she deposed Ryan and said, "Listen, your brother is..." It's not that Ryan wasn't on his side, because I don't want to say too much about the book because I want people to read it. But he basically tells Diamond Liddy, "Listen, I'm not on anyone's side. Tyler murdered our parents, but he's still my brother. Like, I want him to go to prison for life because that's what he deserves, but I still love my brother." I can understand. I love my siblings. So I understand where he's conflicted. You know what I mean? But he's not like, "I hate my brother, this and this," or he's not like, "I love my brother and I don't want him to be in prison forever." That's obviously what Diamond Liddy wanted to hear, was that he wanted, he didn't want him to have life in prison, but that's not what Ryan says. So I think that Diamond Liddy was worried about the testimony and was just like, "Listen, cut your losses and just plead no contest because we might not win at trial." So now I want to explain to you a little bit of the difference between, guilty, not guilty, no contest, and an Alford plea. Obviously, guilty, not guilty, very cut dry. We obviously know what that means.
Yeah.
Now, no contest versus an Alford plea. When you're comparing no contest versus an Alford plea, the biggest difference is that no contest is neutral, where Alford plea is not. With an Alford plea, you maintain that you're innocent. The only reason you enter this plea is to avoid going to trial because there is a high probability the prosecutor would win. That the prosecution would win. Very, very famous case. I don't think you know anything about this case, and we'll try to cover it, is the West Memphis 3. They end up years and years later pleading the Alford plea. I don't think they didn't do it. I know West Memphis 3 didn't do the crimes they were committed of, but we'll discuss that later on. No contest is, you're not admitting guilt, but you're accepting it. Basically, you're kind of saying, "Yeah, I'm guilty, but I just don't want to say I'm guilty." You know what I mean? So that's the difference. Alford plea is you absolutely maintain your innocence. I did not do this, but I think that there's enough circumstantial evidence that I could possibly be found guilty.
Oh, okay.
And no contest is, you're not saying you're guilty because you're not pleading guilty, but you're just like, just give me what you got, kind of thing.
Okay.
Now, not all states have the Alford plea, only a few states. Now, this is, I really hope I don't muck this up, and I hope I explain it well. If not, I just recommend people doing their own research. But a week before Liddy had entered the no contest plea on Tyler's behalf, Liddy filed for the charges to be dropped based on a 2012 Supreme Court ruling that under the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, it was unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile offender to a mandatory life without parole for first-degree murder. Now, this case that the Supreme Court sat upon, or, they talked about, was the Miller versus Alabama. It's a very interesting case. But her reasoning was that the 2012 Supreme Court ruling created a defect in the Florida murder statute that had not been corrected yet. She was claiming that under Florida law, there was no legal punishment that could be imposed against a minor convicted of first-degree murder. So basically, in the state of Florida, when you are found of first-degree murder, normally you either get life without parole or the death sentence. Okay? Yeah. So basically, this is a mandatory life without parole. She obviously didn't want that, so she's trying to say, well, this 2012 court proceeding found that that's unconstitutional. So now you can't try him for first-degree murder because in Florida, the mandatory is life without parole or death. And under being a juvenile, you can't be sentenced to death, which only changed in the state of Florida in 2005. In 2004 and before, you could be sentenced to death as a 16-year-old in the state of Florida. Just want to throw that out there. But, so this is her reasoning. She wants these charges dropped. She wants them charged either with second-degree murder, third-degree, or just dropped altogether.
It's crazy.
It's interesting. I hope I really didn't muddle that up too much, but that's in essence what I got from it. She did argue about his brain not being developed enough, impulse control, just the normal jargon that attorneys will use, you know what I'm saying? Mind you, he was only 153 days from his 18th birthday.
Yeah, dude, come on. The kid's old enough to know better. I mean, you can't feed us that undeveloped,
I want to know whose brain's growing in 153 days to know the difference between not murdering your parents and murdering your parents. So, obviously, the charges were not dropped, and the state's attorney was fighting for life without parole. Now, the sentencing phase begins. A lot of people don't realize that when you plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest, you're not always sentenced right then and there. The judge isn't like, okay, well, I'm going to sentence you now to life without parole. You get to have a sentencing hearing, or I refer to as the sentencing phase. So when he ended up pleading no contest on February 19th, the judge set the sentencing phase for March 10th of 2014, the same year. So now the sentencing phase begins. Ryan was worried, the older brother. He was worried that people were going to think that he picked sides. So Ryan would actually one morning sit on one side of the courtroom and then in the afternoon would sit on the other side of the courtroom. Just so that he showed people he was not showing favoritism. That he loved his parents and he also loved his brother.
So wait, okay, that I didn't know, that a courtroom is set up for the different sides of the trial?
It's not
I thought it was just audience.
Correct. So it not necessarily is, but you have to understand Ryan's family was divided. I want to say, I'm not going to say which grandparents because I don't fully remember. I think it was his maternal grandmother and grandparents. They thought Tyler should get parole. They did not. They thought Tyler was a good kid. He messed up. I mean, you murdered your parents, but whatever. Like you
messed up.
Like he knocked over Ma's favorite vase or something, but whatever. So they wanted life with parole, and basically everyone else wanted life without parole. So you just tend to walk in and you see, oh, they're on this side, so you just subconsciously go to the other side. So that's kind of where it was. But Ryan, he talked to his maternal grandparents. He talked to his paternal. He really tried to not cause a divide. And good for him. You know what, Ryan, he's an A-plus guy. I'm a big fan of Ryan. But, so, he ended up switching sides. Now, the sentencing phase, you get to hear from people. They get to come and testify on your behalf or on behalf of, the Mr. and Mrs. Hadley. So, some of the people that did testify, medical personnel, like the ME, things like that.
Yeah.
A couple of Tyler's friends testified, some other family members. A former jail inmate who refers to Tyler as Hambo, Hambo, which is short for Hammer Boy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, said that Tyler would sign autographs,
Get out of here.
right? He would sign autographs as, quote, "It's hammer time, Tyler Hadley."
Yeah,
I
this
hate this kid.
This kid's messed up.
He's garbage.
Yeah,
I hate this kid. Right there just shows he has
It's the attention.
no remorse.
It's all about the tension. It's always been about the attention.
I absolutely loathe this kid. So, and also Ryan testifies. Ryan testifies that he loves his brother, but he wants him to get life without parole because that's what he thinks is appropriate. On March 20th, 2014, so that means that the sentencing phase took 10 days. Judge Robert Makinson sentenced Tyler to life without parole. He said that he thought it was premeditated.
Of course.
And yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't impulsive. I mean, the fact that he told people over and over again, and the fact that he told his friend he was going to do it the day before, and that he stood behind his mom.
Yeah, I mean, come on, this was obvious. I mean, at the least, this was planned 24 hours prior, if not a week before.
Yeah, absolutely. So it definitely was premeditated. And the judge said that he felt that Tyler murdered them for his own gain. Just not necessarily financial gain, but just for whatever, for his freedom, so on and so forth. The judge did end the sentencing phase by stating, "The court takes no pleasure in issuing the sentence, but it's the only appropriate sentence." And Ryan's obviously satisfied with the sentence.
Yeah.
The story's not over. I know, you thought. More court stuff. Woohoo! Montgomery versus Louisiana, 2016. This case upheld the 2012 Miller versus Alabama, and it made it retroactive, which means he gets a new trial. He gets to do everything over again. In 2016, the conviction was overturned based on the Montgomery versus Louisiana due to the 2012 statute not being coded, or it wasn't made an official statute yet. I called Tommy, who, the folks out there that don't know, he's my brother and he's an attorney. I called him and had him explain it to me, but it was just basically sounded like paperwork, computer jargon. But to ensure that Tyler had a fair trial,
They had to redo
fair
it.
sentencing, correct, that he got a fair whatever, they redid it. So, and I guess it was because he could now have the chance of doing it with parole, like being sentenced to life with parole,
Yeah,
things
I
like
don't
that.
know how this would change anything, but
Correct.
okay.
So in December 2018, Judge Sweet sentenced him again to life without parole.
Good.
Tyler is now housed in Okeechobee, CI. Now, Okeechobee, CI is not far from Port St. Lucie, obviously, as you know, but
Yeah.
it's not far. So, like, Tyler's grandparents that live there, the ones that want to visit him, they can go and visit him. Okeechobee is, like, it's next door to Port St. Lucie. It's just in the middle of the state. And now their house, if you were wondering, it was demolished in 2015 and it was rebuilt. So the actual structure is no longer there. They actually knocked down the structure and rebuilt the house.
So nobody's living in the house full of death.
Correct. The death house has been...
I always wonder what they do with those when, there's a gruesome murder scene in a house. I mean, I'm sure there are some that they don't knock down.
I was shocked that they actually knocked... For it being in like a residential area and stuff, the only other case I really know that a house was knocked down like that in a residential area is John Wayne Gacy's house. Now, they didn't have a choice. They had to do that with Gacy's house because they completely destroyed it.
Yeah, they did.
But that definitely a case we will cover because I find him to be the most interesting serial killer. But that is our first case, everybody. We are done.
But yeah, that's, like I said, I didn't know much about the case. I mean, I knew this kid wanted a party. He made it happen by any means necessary.
Yeah, see, I thought it was the party thing, but I think it did have a lot to do with them, the way they were treating him. He didn't want to go to the inpatient. He didn't want to, he wanted to drink and do drugs and do whatever he wanted to do, and he didn't want his parents around. He wanted to do...
so they shouldn't have acted like parents.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
That's what we want everyone to take away from this story.
Yeah.
But
whatever you do. Yeah.
we appreciate you guys so much. We really enjoyed recording this episode for you guys. Let us know what you think. Did you hear of this case before? Is this the first time? Did we give you new information? You can email us at qualitytimewithtruecrime@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. Please go join it. Again, all this information is in the introductory episode. Go give it a listen and let us know what you think.
I am going to put this up on YouTube as an audio file. Our introduction is also up there as well. There's, obviously no video to it, but you can also comment there if you want, if that's a platform that you'd rather use, whichever you feel.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.